It's been a long time coming, but I'm finally trying out Soulstice. So I've had my eye on this one for a while because there's some obvious similarities to other works, from its character designs and premise. But that's why I wanted to play it, especially as a fan of the Claymore anime. Now at that time, I was thinking, okay, there's a small chance it has a cool tie-in action game. You never know, right? There's a few examples of that happening over the years. So, let's see. There was a shoddy looking DS game. Looked fine enough, but I felt like Claymore deserved something bigger. But ever since then, I was left wondering about what an actual 3D Claymore action game would look like. And well, it seems like my wishes have been granted. This is Combat Overview. Here we go over the general controls, the main mechanics, who or what we use them on, and then seeing how it all comes together. The greatsword will be our main weapon for the entire game, so you better get comfortable with it. Now, something you'll notice, it's assigned to the triangle or Y button by default. I know it'll seem different at first, but if you're at all familiar with DMC, then having your main attack be on triangle is pretty standard and should be second nature at this point. Okay, we also have secondary weapons. We begin with the Warhammer, which is a sword just transformed to deal blunt force trauma with the slower but hard hitting attacks. Now, right about here, you're probably thinking, wait, shouldn't the buttons be swapped then? The setup is kind of backwards, right? And the answer is maybe. Again, I know it seems weird, but trust the process, it'll make sense soon enough. Alright, as the game progresses, we're given new sub-weapons by our observer. These range from a whip, gauntlets, blades, bow and arrow, dual arm cannons, and so on. Now each weapon has their own specialty or role to fill. Hammer to deal with those sturdier targets, especially their defensive shields. A whip for crowd controlling weaker enemies. Gauntlets to strip away layers of armor. The bow to pierce through those flying enemies. Blades to shred a single target like flyers or summoner enemy types especially. And finally the cannons. These bad boys kind of do it all. The blunt weapons that multi-hit, which also leads to an explosion to deal with larger enemies and crowds. You get these super late into the game and it makes sense why. So as you can tell, there's sort of a rock beats scissors counter system. Sort of like an RPG, right? Slash weapons do better against squishies, while blunt weapons are better against those solid or reinforced enemies. You see this sort of thing in Symphony of the Night, Demon Souls, and I have a sneaky suspicion it's also in DMC3. Don't know about you, but I would rather use Beowulf or Cerberus on stone blood goils or chess pieces because of their hard exteriors. Just makes sense. So there's some slight damage buffs to consider if you want to aim for efficient gameplay. Now how we go about achieving that is sort of up to you really, and that's because we have quite a few moves to solve our problems. Just really depends on the situation. So yeah, there is a go-to answer for every problem, but it's up to you to find those openings to begin with. Alright, so every sub-weapon has their own basic combo. There's a single delay string, which is always after the second swing. Held attacks, with some exceptions, for an extra potent effect. There's double taps with the left thumbstick while attacking to access their gap closer. And a launcher-esque move by pressing jump and attack at the same time. This is why we kept square for our side weapons, by the way. It's so much easier to line our thumb over those two buttons in the corner. It would have been awkward to press space buttons entirely opposite of each other, right? And of course, there's an aerial version which are usually knockdown enders. Yeah, there's a lot going on. But I haven't even mentioned their unique properties. So for example, some launchers keep you grounded, while some have you follow them upwards. Some gap closers send away, while others will keep the enemy close. I can keep going, but I'm sure you get the idea. You can either use these weapons for their distinct utility, or their hard counters, maybe even both. Then add weapon hot swapping on top of that for even more on-the-fly adaptation. Onto defenses. We have this dash step, goes a solid distance and has complete iframes. Does a bit of damage too, believe it or not. Just be careful though, because mashing these out leads to lengthy recovery. But if used correctly, you're able to consistently cut and lag short of most, if not all, of your attacks. Now you're able to reposition attack more frequently. This includes air dashing as well. Learning to dash cancel is a very important skill, so try your best to develop that muscle memory as early as possible because it'll become a key part of your skill set. Besides that, she is quite lacking in the defense department. I actually think it would have been awesome if she had a clash parry. Not only was that a popular mechanic during the 6th generation of action games, which is what Soulstice is pulling a bit of inspiration from, but it also aligns with her more offense is good defense sort of approach. So having something to reward your well-timed aggression would only elevate this game even further. Maybe in the sequel. Now, while Briar doesn't have much defensive capabilities, your sister Lute will be the one to take on that responsibility. Basically being that angel on your shoulder in more ways than one. So she'll be the one dealing with those many different attacks, like deflecting projectiles, doing a counter, or freezing enemies for a brief moment. To perform these, just look out for the bump prompt. It'll pop up on the attacking enemy as they're winding up, so keep an eye out and react. Now there is a perfect parry. All you have to do is press a counter as soon as a prompt appears. And you can tell you've done it properly by the plus indicator. The best way to do this consistently is to remap the parry from circle to R1, because having to lift your finger from one face button to the other has way too much travel time and will most likely cause you to miss the window to perfect parry. But with this slight change, I'm able to continue attacking with my thumb and just tap R1 with my index finger on reaction. It's a lot easier to pull off, I find. Which leads to my next point about this counter system. And that's how Briar and Lute act independently of each other. So as your sister is performing the counter, you're free to keep attacking. This allows you to maintain this non-stop pressure and continuously build unity while being safe for that much longer. There is a few caveats to be mindful of, and that's how you cannot deflect, counter, or freeze the more elite enemies without correct upgrades. So you can only defend yourself against a handful of stuff at the very beginning. You will be later on, but not on a fresh file. Now the other thing is whether or not Lute will either counter or freeze an enemy. This is dependent entirely on the enemy and their specific attacks, not on your timing. So you must be very familiar with these details, otherwise you'll be left guessing if this attack will be completely interrupted, or you have to reposition before the attack becomes active again. Looking at the HUD, the white bar is health, and the only way to refill it are with these small or large healing items, or random drops from killing enemies or breaking objects. Now there is a meter right beneath it, but we're just going to skip it for now and tackle the evocation fields. So by pressing either the left or right trigger, your sister will place this bubble around you, and will stay active until you press the same trigger again. Now there's two different colors, red and blue. This is important because there are color-coded enemies. So we need to activate the right field to deal any kind of damage, because if not, we'll just reel back or just phase through that enemy. But unlike DMC Devil May Cry, these colors aren't tied to specific weapons, which means you're free to use whatever weapon or attack you want. So you can still launch, crowd control, and so on. Your options are not restricted, and your wide arsenal is still viable no matter what you're fighting. But with the added weakness system in mind, there's still a large incentive to use the right weapon alongside the right color for absolute efficiency. With that established, it's not just a simple light switch. You actually need to know how to manage it properly, because having the field on for too long will have Lute go into overcharge or entropy as it's called, which causes her to disappear, leaving you defenseless and unable to attack certain enemies for the time being. Yeah, you have to be mindful of this at all times, since it gradually starts to overheat if left unchecked. But there are ways to lessen or relieve this buildup. So, simply attacking the correct color will reduce it. Easy enough, right? Also, killing that enemy will do the same thing, but that's a future upgrade. Same for synergy attacks, doing those will get rid of buildup, but again, future upgrade. And the obvious one is to just turn it off when it's not needed. Only use it when the situation calls for it. Now this will be a hot take, but I like this system, because it's sort of rare to have a unique and experimental mechanic that requires the player to learn and master its quirks. That's just how every 2D action game was like in the past, and they were way better for it. Nothing was like each other, and they felt like a truly different experience. It's also why I'm a rare defender of Bayonetta 3, because it actually attempted something different in a day and age where everything is rewarded and expected to be homogenized and familiar. Sad to say, but nothing in the genre can be subversive and distinct like they once were. It's quickly shunned and deemed too risky. But Bayonetta 3 and even Soulstice find their way to push the envelope in some way. Yeah, Even though this color-based system hasn't been well received in the past, I highly recommend you give this take on it a chance because there's some fun to be had. It's a constant balancing act that rewards smart target prioritization, careful meter management, non-stop aggression, and pure efficient gameplay. Sounds pretty fun. Now that leads into our next thing, Unity, which is our momentum-based mechanic. So in the top right corner, we see the sisters' portraits. Now as we land attacks of any kind and do successful counters, they will begin to get closer and closer, eventually merging into one. This is a visual representation of how in sync they are in a fight. But since it's based off momentum, we need to maintain it. So it will decay over time if we don't engage in combat, and it will take a noticeable dent if we're hit. Now there is a few reasons to play well enough to build and keep this high momentum, aka Unity. For one, loot attacks alongside you. This happens passively, so you don't have direct control on what she does, but she will gain access to more attacks depending on your current Unity. So higher the momentum, the more frequently she'll lend a helping hand, like tracking projectiles, launchers, or binding an enemy. For reason 2, Briar can now do synergy attacks, which are added finishers unique to every weapon. Now there are different tiers of Unity, and most of them will not let you perform these synergy attacks, which means you must play well. But that extra work is greatly rewarded because these special finishers have crazy range, deal good damage, and give you iframes. Want to know what else is pretty cool? Unity will not reset. So if you continue to play at a high level, then you can perform these powerful moves back to back. But they aren't easy to access because these are limited to the pause combos, which means it requires a lot of setup. The delay leaves you vulnerable, and they tend to be the longest string you have. So you have to find the right moment and be on your A game with those counters. Because again, it only takes a single hit to prevent this entire thing from happening. And they definitely have a few chances to do just that. Especially for those slower weapons, right? While like for us, there's a workaround. So just do the Greatsword's basic delay combo, but right before doing the final move to activate the synergy attack, just use your sub-weapon instead. This works for every weapon and can be done in reverse as well. So you can start the sub-weapon's delay string, then end with the Greatsword if you wish. Now for the third and final reason to want high momentum, Rapture. So if you're able to reach the absolute max amount of Unity, you can now activate your powered up state. While in this form, you will deal more damage, have larger hitboxes, zip across the arena, and get hyper armor. There's also iframes on activation and even cancels animations too, so you can pop this in a moment's notice. But the most important part of this mode is being able to attack any enemy type no matter the color. Guess the purple gives away that both fields are on. Now, your advanced moveset is simplified in this form, which means you can't use anything besides these wide arcing attacks. Doesn't matter if you press main or sub, it's the same move either way. So yeah, just spam honestly. Kind of a simple game plan once it's activated, but damn it, I earned this powered up state. Because if you get hit even once, then you won't see this to begin with. So you must control the situation at all times, or get stuck rebuilding that momentum from the ground up again. Yeah, Rapture is a very nice reward to those who mastered the toolkit and the enemy's movesets. It's not just a get out of jail free card for those who messed up. No, it's for those who are deeply familiar with the game's mechanics. But alright, while in Rapture, this diamond will begin to fill. It'll happen gradually on its own, doesn't matter if you do or do not attack something. So sort of think of it as a timer, because once it's full, you'll soon be kicked out of this form. But you're also given this button prompt. Now pressing this will end things off with a powerful finisher. It does reset your Unity, so it's up to you if you want to pull that trigger. Now there's also something called Berserk State. To put it simply, it's Majin or Sin DT from DMC2. So it's only available when you're at critical health. But here's the thing, you won't see this outside of the tutorial. Because in order to have the right amount of Unity to even activate this powered up state, we can't be hit to begin with, right? But this desperation form is only available when you do take hits, and a lot of them at that. So yeah, it sort of contradicts itself. Maybe it's a way to come back when you have absolutely nothing, it's like no items and all that. But again, the chances of this happening is extremely low. So you're either good at the game or not. That's really what it comes down to. Now there is a form you can use, sometimes, and that's Transcendence. Now this wasn't available on release, it was added in a post-launch update. But yeah, it's pretty cool to have even more Claymore-like abilities. So this form isn't as skill intensive to obtain like Rapture, and that's because it works more like a standard DT. Just play normally and it'll fill up eventually. Doesn't matter if you land hits or get hit, they both add to it. Honestly, don't think about it too much either. For one, it's more of a new game plus thing, so don't expect to use this for a while anyways. It's a great addition for those who need more guaranteed comeback mechanics. Pretty powerful, lasts for a while, and has a few side abilities. Even has a screen clearing ultimate at the cost of any remaining meter. But it's something you won't see more than 2 times per mission. And a stage can last about 10 to 20 minutes. So it's still quite rare, and you're better off learning the game's mechanics to consistently obtain that Rapture state instead. You'll just get more value that way. It is pretty neat you can siphon Unity into this meter, filling it faster, but again, you won't have much Unity to transfer over if you're not good at the game to begin with. For upgrades, we have the occasional shop dispersed throughout the stages, as well as between each stage, similar to DMC. Here we can buy basic healing items. Most importantly, max HP and increased entropy. More health means more room for error, but the field mechanic is such an integral part of the kit, you really don't want to go without it. So prioritize buying about 2 of these from the shop as early as possible. Both a bit of exploration and platforming, you'll collect all the fragments you need to create your own. There's even secret challenge missions similar to DMC that do the same. So yeah, try your best to complete those at your own pace. Alright, you can also buy weapon exclusive upgrades. You can either buy moves or proficiency levels. And you should prioritize the latter, because with each tier you buy, you'll enhance their damage output against their hard counters, while also adding another enemy type to that list. So make these your top priority. We do have a few weapons to pick from, but I would focus on leveling up the Warhammer and the Whip to make things a whole lot easier. Now unfortunately, you have to buy the basics each and every time, because since the Hammer and the Whip hard carry, just buy the Whip's Leash Grab in both Prop Shredder variants, as well as the Hammer's Grounded Launcher. These are very important to have. And for the 90% of the other stuff, don't worry about it. You won't be able to unlock everything in your first playthrough anyways, so focus on proficiency levels while grabbing the small handful of moves. With that said, it's not just Briar that gets a few upgrades, you also get to improve loot capabilities. So her specialty is mainly in the defense department, with a few passives as well. As you can tell, she has a more expansive skill tree for a few things. I know there's a lot to go through, but here's a few must-have upgrades to better ease into things. And that's Breaker, Bulwark, and Unblinking. These will allow your counter to work on every enemy, not just a small fry. So definitely pick these up as fast as possible, especially before the first boss. Sisterly Bond is also a solid pick. It's basically an auto parry. There is a recovery to it, so it's not something you can rely on, but it'll help with those occasional off-screen attacks. You pretty much want to focus on getting those counter-based upgrades. They help a lot early on. Be careful what you buy next, because if you read carefully, some skills will penalize you by increasing entropy. Another big giveaway is if they're tied to chaos. All of these abilities are quite strong, but come at a great risk. So until you have the mechanical know-how and the skills to even things out, ignore chaos-based skills until the very end of the game. But remember, you won't be able to purchase everything on your first playthrough. If you're reading between the lines, I'm basically saying you won't be prepared for this game's true experience anytime soon. I'd actually recommend you begin on Initiate difficulty because of that. Knight is available at the start, but it's balanced in a way expecting you to have a few things. And if it's any consolation, Knight has a clear rate similar to Ultimate Ninja on Razor's Edge, so take that for what you will. Not only that, but these upgrades are pretty expensive, and it doesn't help that you also have to purchase an item to expand that skill tree even further, which yeah, is also expensive. As you can tell, you're price gated in a lot of ways, which slows progression to a crawl. Again, it's extremely helpful to begin on Initiate to avoid or lessen any onboarding issues. Use that playthrough to familiarize yourself with the mechanics, while also grabbing the necessary tools needed for the real deal. So, Just like classic action titles, consider replaying this game if possible. When it comes to enemies, you'll first be introduced to the Broken and Pikemen, just regular fodder enemies to rush you down while the others shoot from afar. Now, since they're susceptible to immediate hit stun, you can just mash. You'll win that first interaction since they have no way to fight back. And the best way to lock down a lot of these guys is with the whip. That's because it has wide sweeping, multi-hitting attacks. Just know it is a bit on the weaker side, but again, the trade-off is amazing crowd control. You won't have the whip for a few missions though, but you'll do just fine if you make the first move. Then Blighted. As you can tell, they're basically walking, ticking time bombs, so it's a good idea to prioritize them. Like for us, they're also weak to immediate hit stun, so we can push them around or, better yet, launch them up. Which is a good time to break down juggles and how to extend them. Okay, usually I'll open things up with the Warhammer. The initial hit lifts them up, is very quick, and links into the hammer's real launcher, which has us follow them up. From here, it's all about repeating the same few inputs. Do the greatsword's first 3 attacks, jump cancel, do the same 3 hits, air dash, then finish things off with the same 3 hits. You can do different routes with that final combo, but practice doing this for now. But yeah, that's it. Use those movement options to extend airtime and deal massive amount of damage. This will be your bread and butter and our go-to punish for the rest of the game, so again, please learn it. Then we have guards and captains. These guys are much larger and hard hitting, which also means they have hyper armor to punish mashing. Not only that, but you must destroy the armor to deal any significant damage. The hammer is fine, especially with dash cancels, but the gauntlets are the real way to remove those layers. But the captains have an extra shield. Trying to use your regular greatsword will just have it bounce off. So you must use the Warhammer to break through this barrier. And again, use dash cancels to speed this process up. Keeps you moving while reducing downtime. From here, just keep up the pressure until they're staggered and able to take hit stun. Then it's back to the basic bread and butter. Now champions are the final version of this archetype, but the strategy is pretty much the same though. Use the Warhammer and dash cancels to remove recovery. Just try your best to stay in front of him, because being on his sides or behind him will force out a very fast swipe as he turns to face you. But staying in front will reduce those chances, and you'll mainly see this vertical and horizontal attacks instead. Now, these moves can be interrupted, only frozen in place, which means they'll continue to attack once the effect wears off. So, you must reposition before that happens. Soon enough, we'll be introduced to the Wraith enemies. For now, we'll just have to worry about the flying ones like Grievers and Reviler. Similar to before, one tries to get in close, while the other will try to lock you down with their laser beams. But as you'll soon find out, they're extremely easy targets. So get in close, jump towards them, then begin your bread and butter. Simple as that. Next up are mongrels. These small dogs run in packs and like to surround you. But I'm sure you know the game plan. Pick your target, use the Warhammer to lift them up, then do that bread and butter. Not only does this kill them in one go, but it keeps you away from the surrounding enemies as well. So you can get away with this pretty easily. But they are led by an alpha. This bigger, more powerful version deals more damage, has hyper armor, and even buffs those nearby mongrels. So you have to choose which of the two evils should be dealt with first. Now our go-to weapon will still be the Warhammer. But you'll notice, it doesn't cause immediate hit stun, and that's because we have to break them down into a staggered state before we can manipulate their positioning. It's honestly no different than DMC3 stun values, where you're dealing constant pressure to push them past their specific threshold. Then you're allowed to perform launchers or sendaways. But unlike DMC3, you can actually see the stun bar fill up as you're locked on. So once that meter is full and turned red, that's your cue to begin that launch combo. Now whenever I juggle these more larger enemies, I alter the bread and butter just slightly. So instead of cancelling after the third swipe with the greatsword, I'll add a single attack with the Warhammer on top of that before resetting. So 1, 2, 3, Warhammer, jump cancel, 1, 2, 3, Warhammer, air dash, so on. Alright, the Slasher would be our first introduction to the possessed enemy faction. So these guys are usually in large crowds, especially in cramped areas. Which means, use the whip. It's quick, has wide range, and hits multiple enemies. You also take more damage from this weapon too, so it's more reason to use it. Now the main attack you'll see is them zipping across the arena. They usually do it twice, sometimes 3 times back to back. Luckily you can see a red trail along the floor, cluing you on where they're about to go, so be quick to reposition. Just know, countering doesn't prevent this attack, only delay it. So you can get a few hits in, but don't stand in the line of fire for too long. And again, in order to launch these guys, we must break them down. And Prop Shredder does this pretty damn well. And that's because it's crazy fast and multi-hits. So it just stacks up stun in an instant. Just be ready, because it might launch them at the tail end. So be quick to react with a leash grab to follow them into the air. Then go ahead and do the bread and butter. Now even though the punish is the same, it's way more satisfying having to overcome an enemy and earn this combo, while still being mindful of my surroundings. You need to worry about those attacks both on and off screen, right? So it takes a good bit of reactions and coordination to get this done. That couldn't be more true for our next enemy, Stinger. Now these scorpion-like enemies are easily my favorite in the entire game. They're quick, oppressive, and have attacks for any situation. So it has that right pacing. Anyways, the plan is the same as most things, getting close and stay there as long as possible. Because if you're too far away, it'll burrow underground and chase you down. Or it'll pierce the floor and stab your feet if you stand still. So to avoid these, just stay close. All you have to worry about from here is a quick jab that you can interrupt, or this twirl which can only be frozen. So it won't be stopped and you'll be hit if you continue to mash. Instead, jump. We're going to leap over and continue our pressure from there. I like to use the aerial prop shredder once I do, build an insane amount of stun and air stalls as well. I would recommend to jump cancel again to really make sure you avoid the incoming sweep. So yeah, movement and positioning actually matters. Now once they've been staggered, do the same B&B for the larger enemies, which is to add an extra hammer swing after the third great sword attack. Then keep resetting as much as you can. Now once that's all over, they should be vulnerable and release the blue ghosts that possess them. And you want to kill these guys as fast as possible, and that's because they're responsible of keeping this thing alive. So unless you want Stinger to revive, tunnel vision on those rafts. Speaking of flying enemies, we have Shriekers. Nothing too different, just lock them down with the usual B&B. They're also super weak to the bow and arrow, but the B&B works just fine. Now Furies are the stronger red variant. Since it's an elite version, it can also give nearby buffs to other flyers. Now these are more sturdy, so expect hyper armor attacks in the air, but as long as you can react in time, use that air dash to phase through it. There's also the sort of guard stance to counter attack when they're on the floor. So as long as you caught on and stopped mashing to move out the way, you'll be fine. It is a bit rough to track these down with melee attacks. So instead, stay on the ground and use your bow. It's safe, consistent damage, and stuns pretty quick. Then from there, do the standard B&B for larger enemies. And again, be sure to get rid of those ghosts. Maulers are large, brawler type enemies. Actually, they remind me of Birkin from RE2. Anyways, same concept as most larger enemies. Use the Warhammer's basic 3-hit combo, and dash cancel the ender to keep on the move while dealing as much damage as possible. Now, besides the occasional melee swipe, be careful about their guard stance. It'll soon counter with an unblockable attack if you decide to keep mashing. So back off and move back in once they're done. And yep, do the B&B once staggered and kill the ghost that possessed him. Abomination, or Big Red as I like to call him, these guys are an absolute behemoth of an enemy. But here's a quick rundown. Use the Warhammer, stay on the ground using dash cancels to minimize downtime, and focus on staying behind him. It'll avoid those wide swipes, but also his forward charge. Just keep this up until you build enough unity to pop Rapture. That's the main goal here because he does have quite a lot of health. I'm going to skim through the Summoner archetype next, and that's because they're more or less the same. So for the Wraith faction, we have Preachers. Our main weapon of choice will be the dual daggers. Not only are they quick, but these shred these guys since it's their weakness. However, they like to teleport a lot, so they'll escape your combos early and will run away quite often. But you don't want to leave them alone for too long either, and that's because they like to place a barrier around themselves or other enemies. But when that happens, just use the Warhammer. Yeah, it's a lot of chasing them down with dash cancels or with a leash grab. Keep this up until they die, or until you get Rapture. In that case, I say use it immediately to take this guy out as quick as possible. Repentant is another version, but same deal as before. Get up close and personal with the blades. It's their weakness after all. And just a reminder, the Codex has clues on enemies just like DMC1. It's just a lot more clear in this game though. Just tells you in plain text if they're resilient, ferocious, or swarmer enemy types, and what their weaknesses are. So use that to your advantage. Even the possessed have their own versions of the summoner, but it's honestly not too different. Just replace the blades with the Warhammer and you're good to go. So it doesn't matter if it's the Eidolon or Chorus, the game plan is to chase them down and use nothing but aerial Warhammer combos with those movement resets. And that's because it quickly stuns them. Only once they're staggered do I go back to the bread and butter. Yeah, it's all about the aerial resets, building up to Rapture, and killing the wraiths that possess them. Our first boss is the Champion. Yeah, they pulled a DMC3 having us fight a future norm enemy, which is pretty cool. Well, since we already went over his move list, there's not much to say. Stay on the ground, be ready to dash cancel, be in front of him most times, but be aware of specific vertical or horizontal hitboxes, from forward pokes, sweeps, and overhead slams. Straightforward fight, but it shows off a lot of the mechanics of this game. Now Arrowhead is something completely new, but as the name implies, he is an archer that would shoot you down from afar. So our goal is to chase him down before they run off. But the thing is, don't get too close. Not so soon anyways. It'll force him to leap away earlier than expected, which means we can't land our punish. So kind of keep your distance, wait for the shot, counter it, then make your way in. Oh, and a reminder, be sure to buy those counter upgrades before this fight. Those skills allow you to deal with boss attacks as well. So be sure to grab those. But yeah, once I'm close, I do full grounded Warhammer combos. Can't do much than that because he'll run off to someplace else. Now sometimes he'll prep a get off me attack, but a simple counter will freeze it long enough to avoid it. Then go ahead and land a few more Warhammer hits during their recovery. Eventually he'll jump away to fire at you from afar in this first person view. Kind of reminded me of Kingdom Hearts 2 in a way. Anyways, he also left 3 clones, each sending out a wave for you to maneuver around. They do shoot in a fixed order, so it's not a guessing game on who you should prioritize. So go to the one that's least likely to attack you as you move in and destroy him. Oh, and since they're blue, be sure to have the right field on as well. So just be quick to break these or they'll just keep looping the same attack over and over. But once that's done, Arrowhead will drop down for a free punish, so let him have it. After that, it's back to square one. They'll back off, you close a gap, only once you deflected it should you move in, and keep an eye out for their desperation attack. Now, they might summon back up too, but you can honestly ignore them entirely. Well, that's only if your dash cancels are on point. If they are, you'll move way too fast for them to even get close. For Colossus 1, don't do anything besides avoiding the projectiles coming your way. So it's a whole lot of dodging lasers for a good bit. Easiest way to do that is to just stay back and hug the wall, because eventually he'll do the self-destruct explosion, but once it's over, he's completely vulnerable. So all you have to do is turn on the right color, do your basic B&B to destroy both gems, and that's it. Abomination is again our first intro before joining the basic roster. So this boss version of Big Red is no different than what I said earlier. Use hammer, dash cancel, and focus on staying behind him to avoid his Y swings and forward charge. Keep it up until you build Unity to pop Rapture. Then clear any wrath that pops out. The Weavers might look scary, but they're no different than the basic Grievers we've been fighting all game. So getting close and do the extended aerial combos. And the B&B works pretty damn well against them here as well. That's because they're huge and hardly move out of the way. They also stay really close to each other, so there's a chance to hit both. But if you notice, there's 2 health bars. Well, that's because we have to kill both of them. Here's the thing, if you kill one too early, it is possible the other one might revive the partner, which resets the fight. So you must kill them at the same time. But as long as you rotate targets often enough throughout the fight, you'll be fine. They do disappear to summon backup, while also placing beams along the floor. All you have to do is clear out those slashers to force the boss to come out from hiding. So, Use that whip and track him down the best you can. Just know, the bosses will cast a debuff that prevents you from dashing, but there's a clear sign by looking above your head. To remove it, just swap to blue and mash counter. That's it. Then you're free for a while longer before they do it again. Soon enough, it's back to the usual B&B combo, just aiming for Rapture. Next, we fight Donovan. They're a humanoid fight, so it's closer to a rival match. But the plan is always the same. 1, 2, 3 with the hammer, then dash cancel. Now by the time we finish our own combo, he'll most likely prep his. They'll contest this after you countered it, and that's because it's only paused for a brief moment, rather than being completely interrupted. So, just dash jump away. Gets me out of there, and avoid those swings. His attacks do track, by the way, so that's another reason to jump, because you're never too sure if he'll snap towards you. But it won't matter because he'll never reach up there. Keep this up until you get Rapture, then you'll really melt his health bar. Now for Colossus 2. We have ourselves a rematch, but this time we fight both forms. So when he's out and about, I'll run up, use the Great Sword's grounded 3-hit combo, jump cancel, then do the B&B. Just try your best to stay behind him though, because there's a few wide swipes that cover his front. Other than that, it's possible to counter the rest of his attacks as you chip away at those ankles. Now once he's staggered, just know he has a landing hitbox, so keep a bit of distance. From there, do the hammer's grounded 3-hit combo, jump cancel, then do full aerial warhammer combos with those resets. You might fall to the ground a bit earlier than expected, but just keep jump canceling and you'll shred that health bar in no time. Now after dealing enough damage, it's back to the original form we fought a few chapters back. And just like before, avoid all of its projectiles and beams until the ears are exposed. They do get a few extra moves since last time, like this diagonal beam for example. Just double jump and air dash, you'll be fine. Yeah, put on the correct fields and use aerial cancels to easily destroy each gem with ease. Once that's over, it's back to square one again. We fight Chorus next, but it's the same stuff as before. Getting close, jump, arrow hammers into cancels, they teleport, dash cancel after them, do B&B when staggered. Then of course aim for Rapture for a quicker fight. Donovan has made a return as well. It's more or less the same exact thing, only this time his shade has made an appearance. Now similar to Loot, she'll toss out extra hits for us to counter back. She even places a barrier around Donovan, so we need to put on the blue field to damage it. And once broken, then he's left wide open. Just be sure to turn it off when that happens to manage your meter. And then go ahead and do grounded hammer dash cancel loops from there on out. Now in phase 2, he does get 1 or 2 new moves, but it's very hard to miss them because of this purple glow that's surrounding him. Again, just get out of the way and stall in the air until it's over. Armina is up next, so for her, I won't start with the grounded attacks, I will instantly jump and start with the regular B&B, minus the hammer. For now, we want to stick to fast attacks, because we won't have enough time to do the entire combo otherwise. So as we're up there, the one thing you should be looking out for is the jab. There's a long enough windup to see it coming, so just react with an air dash to iframe through it. But since they're left in recovery, I make sure to do a full aerial combo right after, before letting myself touch the floor again to regain my resources. Yeah, from there it's all about chasing them down to repeat the process. Yeah, it's a balancing act of not wasting your airborne resources while dealing enough damage before they retaliate. So do a few attacks in the air, then drop down to reset. Don't want to linger up there for too long without your air dash, pretty much. Now once staggered, only use a hammer to deal some solid damage. It should move things on pretty quick. Before entering phase 2, we have to do a little bit of platforming. So make your way up, land a few hits, and they'll drop down for a guaranteed punish. From there, shadow clones are placed along the walls. Just pick the closest one and do an entire greatsword aerial combo. Keep it simple for now, and you'll get rid of them in no time. Only once I know I found the right one, then I do the basic B&B. Now phase 2 has them summon sweeping lasers, they'll spiral across the stage, and shoot this tri-spread shot. Make your way in as you avoid all these different attacks, and do those quick aerial hits while reacting with that air dash. This fight is all about movement and careful positioning. Pretty fun boss. Now for the Harbinger, and already just a super cool looking design. It's another great example of how Transcendence can manifest itself in different ways. But yeah, walk up, do the Great Swords grounded combo, jump cancel, then do that B&B. Now as you're doing this, there's only 2 attacks to worry about, and both have a similar visual cue, which is them pulling back. Now most times it's a straight jab. This one you do not want to contest because it'll cause an explosion that covers their entire body, which makes for an easy anti-air. So instead, back away and move in afterwards to start over. There's also a power geyser-like attack where he punches the ground to bring up a wave of beams to make you back off. So yeah, continue weaving in and out of his attacks until he's staggered. Then do that B&B punish. Now halfway through, we'll see phase 2. This is where he gets a sword, along with a 3-hit combo. Just time your dashes as you make your way past him, because as long as you're behind him, you'll be fine. Then yeah, it's back to the usual patterns from there. It's finally time for the final boss. It's a mixture of Kana and Savior, but way less complex, let's say. All we need to do is dodge a few slams. And once you do, be sure to attack the gem on the back of their hands. One has red and the other blue, so line it up before making your move. There's also a double slam, and this was the exact moment where I wish jump had iframes. Sort of a tough move to evade, but dodge multiple times if you have to. From there, just attack either hand. Doesn't really matter which one you go for after that double slam. She also has this downwards punch, sending out this spread shot, but as long as you stay in the middle closer to the screen, you'll be fine. I'll just double jump while I'm at it, and that should be enough to avoid it. Then yeah, they're left wide open for you to attack. There's a few more other projectile attacks, but they're easily countered. Seeing their hands stretched out or the eyes begin to glow is the immediate giveaway, so be quick. But anyways, use Warhammer dash cancels to really break down the outer armor, and do the same thing once they're staggered. You'll do a good amount of damage if you do. Now phase 2 forces you to jump between these floating platforms. It's all automatic, very similar to DMC4, so keep moving either to the left or right to avoid the sweeping beams. Now from here on out, they'll rain down projectiles on top of the same attacks as before, so positioning has to be a little more thought out. Phase 3 has a similar start as before, but this time the beam sweeps across multiple platforms now. They'll jump a bit further than last time, nothing too crazy. And yeah, same game plan since the beginning. Warhammer and dash cancels for the win. And that's Soulstice. You know what? This game really surprised me, because over the years I've only heard mixed things. I'm sure that might scare some off, but for me, that made it even more enticing, because it seems like a love or a hate it sort of deal. And I definitely have my fair share of liking unpopular games. So I've been meaning to play this game for the longest time to find out for myself. But things happen and plans change. Sad to say, but it had to be shelved for a later date. And well, that time finally arrived. I went in with an open mind and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Not only is the atmosphere, character design, art direction, and so much more just on point, it also reminded me of the older 3D action games. Now many would compare it to the PS2, but I wouldn't say that entirely. In my opinion, it feels more like something that could have released alongside Dante's Inferno, Darksiders, and of course, DMC Devil May Cry. I like that. We need more action games that capture that 7th generation as well. Those type of games are solid all around, and of course, so is Soulstice. But it does have some issues. For one, remove the multiple paywalls to expand the skill tree, because having to purchase the privilege to buy even more things seems like an unnecessary step to me. And lower prices in general, because once we get a new weapon or a new set of skills, we can't afford anything for a good while. So we have to be extremely selective. I also think the game was a bit too long, clocking in about 20 hours on a casual run. And that longer runtime definitely has a domino effect on progression, because it means any new additions are further apart from each other. And once you add expensive prices to slow progression even further, it feels like you haven't improved much. I highly recommend you replay the game for a second time. By then, you should be able to get those extra abilities and general improvements. Now that's when the game really begins to shine. Sucks someone has to put in overtime before the game truly opens up to you, but it's extremely fun once you do. The higher modes actually remix enemy placements and avoid boring stat inflation. It was kind of hard to put down because it was just that fun climbing the difficulty ladder. But I had to make this video eventually, right? Now, unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people didn't even get to that point either, because only 4% of players even beat the game on any difficulty. So many didn't even get acquainted with the basic mechanics or see them at their full potential. Kind of insane and pretty concerning to see such a massive drop off. Guess that's where the divisive nature comes from. Most don't even get their first clear for one reason or another. I know many cite the field system as the reason why, but in all honesty, I don't think it's bad at all. It's a unique mechanic that requires real mastery to manage and maintain these limited resources. There is a method to the madness, and there's a clear way to work within your limitations. Just need to learn the ins and outs. And I believe more action games need to have these sort of barrier to entry or skill checks to even access their game. That means it's actually different and is presenting you something new. Again, this circles back around to the movement discussion from Ninja Gaiden Black. Some say it's bad, but I say get better. Many classic 2D action games experimented with basic controls, level design, and movement. And something like God Hand is a perfect example of continuing that sort of design philosophy in the early 3D era. Having evasions on the right thumbstick, secret moves in the manual, hidden stun values, counter hit properties, custom movesets, tank controls. Yeah, it's just an oddball of ideas, but that's what makes it so fascinating. Yeah, I'd rather play something that flounders as it fights against the current over anything that races to the bottom of standardization. Because there's value in making something unorthodox. Treasure would do that on a daily basis, and is why they're fondly remembered. I just wish that sentiment was still the case for action games in the modern 3D era. Because anything that attempts something different is quickly shut down. But anyways, I really hope we get a sequel to Soulstice someday. Of course I want to see more of this world, but it's mainly to see the studio continue to develop games and sharpen the skills. Because to me, they're like Soleil. Their games may have some issues, but it's clear there's a lot of passion and a ton of potential for something greater. And just like Soleil's back catalog, I feel like Soulstice will also fall victim to a slow start, but will gain traction over time through word of mouth. The action game world is kind of small, right? So eventually it'll reach you. But yeah, when it does, I hope you give it a fair chance, because it deserves to be played. So check it out.